Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer Locker Room then and now. Greg Chris, along with Frank Fear. Frank, good to see you again, and got another great show tonight, we think, and looking forward to it as always.
Boy, isn't that true? I'll tell you, Greg. I was telling someone the other day, they asked about the show, and I said, it's just an honor and a pleasure to have an opportunity to have really each week great Mountaineers with us. And again, you and I have talked about this endlessly. Not only great athletes on the field, but folks who have really distinguished themselves
Yep.
professionally since leaving Morgantown. I tell you,
Yep.
it just warms your heart because it's not just we root for West Virginia. We're emotionally connected to West Virginia, the university and the state, and it just says such great things.
And you, again, when we get our guests and we start looking at backgrounds and what they're up to these days, it's always just fascinating. And this was no different, and it's going to be a lot of fun to talk to John. I'll tell you what, thinking back, Frank, back in that time, I was season ticket holder, went to all the games, and I'm gonna tell you, of all the games I've seen and all the teams I got to just watch up there live, the offensive line for this '88 team was without a doubt, in my mind, the best offensive line WVU's ever had. And I mean, they were solid from one end to the other, and I think that was a huge part of their success. Now, of course, Major Harris and the skill players get the headlines and are remembered. But if you think back to that offensive line, man alive, that was a crew of football players right there, and John was a big part of that, and so much fun to watch. And they were just so good, so good.
Yeah, in fact, when we put out the promo for the show, Randy Flincham, who's been on the show, former Mountaineer, offensive lineman, tight end type, basically said exactly what you said. He thinks that was the best offensive line, and we've had great offensive players, and that John Stroia was one of the just top players. Obviously, with so much on the line that year, eventually playing for the national championship. So that's incredibly high praise. And Randy actually became a coach, was back for a time, I think on Signetti's staff, if I remember correctly. Pretty sure about that. And then for a number of years was involved at the high school level. So he stays very close to the game, very close to WVU football, and so uh, he's not liberal with his praise. And so that was I thought that was just great.
Yep. We've got a few things to talk about before we bring John in. I don't know that we actually want to talk about him, but I guess we can start with the men's basketball team. And we were talking about it before we came on the air. Man, what a letdown! Gee whiz, I don't even know what to say. After the BYU game, I thought, okay, these guys got it going now, going into the tournament, and then to stub their toe like they did against a woeful Kansas State team, man, it's going to be hard to shake off.
Well, you're absolutely correct. And we're not. There's one thing we can't bring. I mean, we can bring. You coached the game for multiple decades. I can analyze it, but we're not in the locker room. We're not there every day, and that's really important. Beat writers have a much better sense. Um, but the bottom line is, I was looking at it again last night. You and I were Mickey too, and by the way, Mickey is under the weather tonight, unfortunately, and he will not be with us. But Mickey was sharing information during the game, and at the end of the game, um, Hodge and Eagles staff were 6 for 23 overall. That's 20 some percent, and 3 for 17 from three. And those three threes, one of which came at the buzzer, was all from Huff, none from Eagle staff. And it's awfully difficult when you have two of your shooters
Yeah,
shooting 6 for 23. So,
yeah,
it's just the same way with Utah. The Mountaineers much better team. And after those, and I'll stop with this, after those great comebacks against Cincinnati and UCF, to falter against Utah and K State. I know it's any given night, but fans were, it takes the air out of the balloon.
Yeah, and the games that they've lost too. If you go back and look, um, the games that they have lost, it's been because of the poor shooting from Eagle Staff and Huff. And when they win, those two guys are usually on point, and they've really struggled at times to get the ball in the basket. And um, it's not just the 3-point shooting. I mean, it's 10-foot shots, it's layups. They can't make anything, and when they're doing that, it's hard to win. And yeah, get way behind, and they come back, and they've done that several times. Come back and won, but you know that comes back to bite you eventually. You can't keep falling way behind, and then make a miraculous comeback at the end and win the games. That don't happen over and over and over and over and over again. And they just when they're not shooting well, and of course that goes for a lot of teams, but um, they have no chance. I mean, they just when those two aren't shooting well, they have no other options really. As far as amassing points, they got some people that can score, but not like those two, and they've got to have those two going, or they're bad. And I think they showed that last night. They've shown, I think, in 2 nights how good they can be and how bad they can be. Against BYU, they showed how good they can be, and then against K-State, it's just how bad they can be. So just so up and down, and they've been that way all year. It's been inconsistent from after the first 10, 15 games. It started really getting bumpy up and down, and you just hope they go into the tournament and are on, playing well, and you go in there and win some games. That's all you can hope right now at this point in time. So anyway.
Right. It's one of those things. After we interview John, we'll talk about the women's team. But just want to interject that one of our loyal viewers, who also, like Mickey, has been under the weather more than a bit, Timothy Green, is with us again tonight, and it is absolutely great, Timothy, to have you back with us. While you were talking, I was exchanging with Timothy, who's watching on the Voice of College Football, and we appreciate that. Glad to have you back. And excited about, I'm sure he's as excited as we all are. And we'll talk about this later too. Football practice, spring football practice starting on Saturday. And one of the things I want to talk with you about, Greg, is I want you to put on your, for people who are of an age, sort of the Karnak hat that Johnny Carson used to wear, and explain to me what is it, a spring celebration, or I'm not sure what it is, but it's
it's the blue and gold festival, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah, on the 18th.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to be like Mardi Gras type deal. I'm not exactly sure what's coming down there.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Anyway, well, we can talk about that later. We should probably bring John in.
Yeah, let's get John
in. I think I saw him leave for the door, so we better grab him now.
Yeah, we're getting back. He might leave, not come back.
I'm here.
We're honored to have John Stroia with us. And again, like I said, I guess 86, 87, 88, played on probably the best offensive line West Virginia's had in my lifetime for sure. John, it's great to see you. We appreciate you taking some time to join us.
Great. Thank you for that nice introduction.
We have talked a lot about, and we're not going to get into it just yet, but a lot about what Mountaineers do after football. You have had a sensational career after the game, but let's go back. First of all, you're from Ohio. Let's start with how you ended up at West Virginia. Who recruited you? What made you decide to go there, and any regrets about it?
Yeah, I grew up in North Canton, Ohio. Went to North Canton Hoover High School. And Coach Mike Jacobs, the offensive line coach, recruited me. And fortunately, my dad grew up in Canton, Ohio, and went to Lincoln High School. And so one of his older classmates was Don Nealon. So when my dad was a freshman, Don Nealon was a senior, and they ended up playing Class A, or summer baseball and basketball over the summers and so forth. So my dad kind of knew who Coach Nealon was. And then my dad was a football coach up in Berea, Ohio. and he actually coached Mike Jacobs for a year or two. So it was just a weird kind of combination of things. So they recruited me, and I was getting recruited by West Virginia, mostly West Virginia, Kentucky, Purdue, and Michigan State. In fact, the guy who recruited me at Michigan State was Nick Saban. So he sat in my living room a couple of times, and I'd tell him I was going to go to West Virginia, and he was pretty. He said you can't go wrong. It's a great state, great people. So I came on my visit and just fell in love with Morgantown and the people there. And at the time of my life, I thought, I want to be associated with a program and organizations that were kind of up and coming. And if you remember, West Virginia had beaten Oklahoma State or Oklahoma a couple of years before, and was kind of an up and coming program. I really liked Coach Nealon. Thought he was a classy guy. Still is, and that's kind of how I ended up there.
You made a reference, and I have to bring it up, and Frank will start laughing at me. In '87, we played in a Sun Bowl out in Texas. I was there, and
snowed
on us that day. Sure did. The next day it was 75. I never forget it. I asked this question of every person we've talked to that's played on the team, and so far it's been about 10. And my question is this: if you put yourself in a position of a coach, and you have Major Harris as a quarterback, you're on the 3-yard line going for a 2-point conversion to win the game, what are you going to call?
Well, you're asking me for a little bit of revisionist history. I think I'd have let Major do whatever he wanted.
Yes, Frank, you got one finally.
We kind of little inside baseball. We that was kind of a pre-designed play, and they lined up in a different defense, and for whatever reason, it took like 2 seconds longer than it should have to develop. We had a couple guys open, and so, but I do not, we needed to go for the win for sure. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll tell you a story about that. We, when we first looked at film of that team, Coach Nealon said, "Hey, there's a guy on there. Their running back is the best running back in all of college football, Thurman Thomas. And when he goes out, a guy comes in that's even better, Barry Sanders."
Yep.
Maybe the best backfield in the history of football, right? I mean,
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. And again, it's like I was telling you, I think about the games I watched and the people I got to see play, and never even dawned on me, Barry Sanders and Thurman Thomas playing on the same field, But that's funny, though. I ask that question of everybody. I've asked Major 2 or 3 times, and always trying to get somebody to say, if I was a coach, I'd said, "Major, go get 2 points for us somehow. Figure it out."
Yeah.
But everybody's too diplomatic. They're like, "Nah, well, we had a good play called, and it just didn't work out."
It was a good play. It just didn't work out. Yeah.
You played the following year, of course, was the undefeated season, and played in a national championship game. Tell us about those memories from that season all the way up to that game.
Well, it was fantastic, right? And people always ask me, "Well, when did you know, that you guys had a shot at it?" And I think if you ask all the offensive line, they would say the day after the season, the previous season. But I think the like inflection point of the season, the part that really kind of make us take off. We were playing Maryland. If you remember that game, we got down 14-0 early in the game, and we had beaten Bowling Green and Cal State Fullerton, and we had an interception and a fumble. It was 14-0. We were all sitting around. I mean, I think we were 3 and out the first 2 plays, and Coach Nealon came over, looked at all of us, and said, "2 tight ends. We're not throwing the ball for the rest of this half." And we were all like, "Yes." And that was it. And we just crushed them. We just ran over them. And if you look at the games where we won big, we ran over everybody, right? So those are great memories. We, beating Penn State where it could have been 100-0. It really could have been.
Yep.
They took us out. We were all like, no, we want to play the rest of this game. We got a lot to make up for here, right? So that was a great memory. I think anybody you ask on the team, their favorite memory was after the Syracuse game. We went in the locker room. We were probably in there 20 minutes, half hour. Nobody left.
Everybody stayed.
Left the stadium. And, running around that inside of the stadium wall, that's probably my favorite memory.
Yeah.
That, and I got elected team captain before the season. And
Awesome.
the way they did that was y'all voted and everything. And then they took everybody out on the field and they displayed the names of the captains on them one at a time on the scoreboard. And that was really special. It's always nice to be recognized by your teammates and so forth.
Right.
So that was really special too.
Right. I know the the outcome of the national championship game, with Major getting hurt early in the game. Do you feel like we would have won if he would have been healthy?
I don't know, because I got knocked out like the fourth play of the game. So
okay.
I literally had a concussion and did not play after the second series. I snapped for punts, so I ran down the field and got blocked and hit my head on the ground. And I played one more series, but I don't remember it.
Wow.
And it was more than Major. Daryl Whitmore was he was injured before, and then we lost Jim Gray, our nose guard, and Rick Phillips got hurt, and Chris Parker got hurt, who was fantastic defensive lineman. So we had some all within the first 3 or 4 series of the game. So we were and Major hurt his throwing shoulder. I mean, he was pretty much done. So it would have been difficult, with everybody that got hurt. I still think the best team we played that year was Pitt. They had a great team. I think they had 5, top 3 round draft picks, and they were a great team.
Yeah.
Notre Dame was great too. I don't want to take anything away from them. They were obviously really good, but talent wise, I thought Pitt was just a fantastic team.
It would be noted that I think all of you probably know that Lou Holtz passed away this evening.
Yeah.
Saw before I got on the air. So he was the coach, of course, at Notre Dame when we played him. Frank, you want to jump in and talk to John a little bit?
Well, I've got some chatter on the Voice of College Football. Timothy Green said he really likes your jacket. And John was talking to us about it, and the fact that you can wear it after all these years. First of all, we kept it.
The amazing thing is it still fits. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, so
now,
for the people that don't know, this is kind of the warm-up suit we got at the national champion. It's Fiesta Bowl, and I thought, I haven't worn that thing since like 1989. And I was looking at my closet all tonight. I said, tonight's the night.
Very good.
So that's what this is. Yeah.
Now, something serious here. We got to get to this mystery solved. We've got 2 people on the chat who are saying, hi, Dad. And as far as we know, I know, and Greg knows, and Darren, we're accounted for. Our 26 children, we all know their names. So this Eleanor 1000 must be yours.
That's my daughter.
Yes, and I'm gonna stretch here. Her name is Eleanor, right?
That's right.
But the other one I can't. MERS, MERS.
Yeah, that's Maria. That's my older.
Maria. Yes. Well, we're so pleased they're watching, and it's interesting. They're proud of their dad. We're proud of their dad too. So
thank you. And I have a son, Tim. He's probably around there somewhere looking at it. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's fantastic.
That's awesome.
It's going to be in the archive, so can watch later. But we were talking before the show. One of the themes here with then and now is the one thing that connects literally every Mountaineer we've had on the show, is a great athlete, but also a distinguished career afterwards. And many people may not know, and in fact, I would hazard a guess, relatively few, that after your time at Morgantown, you matriculated in the business college at Ohio State, the Ohio
Correct.
State, and have
Mhm.
an MBA. And then you went on to just a phenomenal career in the safety business, and you're president now. You've moved up. You've been a COO, a director. So if I'm correct in this, and I didn't check it, you are now president. You've been president of Hamilton Safe Company for about a decade, correct?
Yeah, about 10 years. Yeah, great little company in Cincinnati.
So talk about your career professionally and in business after Morgantown.
So, I had a little bit of a tryout in the NFL. I got picked up by the Steelers, but I had injured my back my senior year. I just didn't, I'd kind of lost some of the fun because I was hurt. And so, I snapped for punts. So I had a couple teams that wanted me to keep doing that. And I thought, I was a finance major at West Virginia. So I really wanted to go back to school and kind of just try school without any extracurricular activity. So I did sell suits for a year to get ready to save some money. And then I went to Ohio State. And then I was fortunate in my hometown, a company called Diebold. If you use an ATM or go into a bank, you've seen the name Diebold. They make ATMs and banking equipment and so forth. So I interned there when I was in the MBA program. Then I got a job and was really fortunate to be able to do a lot of different things there and learn a lot of different facets of business. And I was there for 21 years. And then I moved to another company, Wilbert, in Orrville, Ohio, for a couple of years as their COO. And then I came to Cincinnati to work at Hamilton Safe, which is, we build safes and vaults and pneumatic drive-up systems and anything that would go in a bank or a pharmacy. And people are surprised when I tell them that. We still make that in the U.S.? Absolutely. You can make great, high-quality products at a good cost in the U.S. still. And we have welders and machinists and, press brake operators and assemblers and 255 people at our plant. And, we're the best in the world at this. And not because of me, we have a great team there. But most people, you hear the news about we can't do anything in the U.S. Yeah, we can. We sell vault doors in Australia and Canada, and we sell to Bureau of Engraving and Printing, to banks, to Walmart. We make all kinds of products for the government. So it still can be done here and done successfully.
Well, one of the things we explore, and again, what a great background, and you've contributed in a variety of companies and, as they say, moved up the ladder. But one of the things that we like to talk with people like yourself, I think maybe the conventional thinking for many people is that, hey, this guy played football in college, and now this guy does whatever professionally. And they may not think about how the two are connected and how being on a competitive major college football team helps prepare you for executive positions, leadership, management. This is a leading question because I know the answer is there is a connection.
Absolutely.
In your case, what are those connections, and how did? And this may get you into talking about the staff there and the leadership of Coach Nealon, but how is it connected for you, and how did it help you as you're moving into various management and leadership roles?
Yeah, there's so much you learn from playing football at a high level, and so much you learn about, being a part of a team. And there's so much I learned because I was fortunate enough to be on a very special team, which kind of takes it up a notch. it was very special what happened in 1988. It doesn't happen very much in any aspect of life. And the only way that happens is great teammates and people that put the team first and people who are willing to go the extra mile, so you learn that. So, and things like hard work ethic, those are kind of just price of entry. There's something else that's a little more special that you need. So, I always tell people, if you're looking for an organization, what you want to look for is people who are passionate about what they do, right? Which you learn in football. People who have good work ethic, people who really understand the business, or in this case, for football, understand what you do as a football team. So that you learn a lot from it. We had great leaders at West Virginia. Don Nealon was a fantastic leader, fantastic coach. We had a great athletic director. People don't remember Fred Schaus. This guy was a legendary coach, right? And any time he talked, I listened. This guy coached Will Chamberlain, Jerry West, won national championship, a couple different levels. So we had great assistant coaches. And the thing at West Virginia, people don't realize, those coaches worked 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day, for from August to December, January, fortunately for us, a couple of times. So they set great examples for us. And I reflect back on my time, at West Virginia and playing for that team all the time when I think about situations at work or whatever. The other thing I always tell people is that nothing I've ever done in my life has been as hard as 2 days. It's kind of been easy after that, right? So the challenges you go through and winter conditioning and things like that, and mentally what you have to go through, most everything else is not as hard, which is good. And people don't understand that either, I don't think. And I had some great role models in life. I had fantastic parents. My dad was a 2-time All-American football player at Mount Union and a coach until he worked at IBM after he finished coaching. And my grandparents were great role models, So I had a great family growing up. I had a great high school coach, Ed Glass, super advanced football mind. And he had a great staff. We ran a real advanced offense and defense. I was lucky in that I didn't say this earlier, but when I visited West Virginia, I got on the scale. I weighed 210 pounds in clothes. And one of the guys there, at the time I was not quite 6'5". I'm a little shorter now, but at the time, one of the offensive linemen there said, "Hey, are you a wide receiver?" I'm like, no. So, I had the flu the week before, but, I weighed 215 my senior year in college. So, West Virginia took a little bit of a chance on me. But what I was going to say is that I was really fortunate in that I learned to lift with a guy named Judd Logan, a 4-time Olympic hammer thrower who was, native to North Canton. And he ran the local gym at the Y. And so I learned how to do powerlifting. And so when I went to West Virginia, all the stuff they were teaching around powerlifting and so forth, I was already doing, for a couple of years, which really, really helped me. Because back then lifting wasn't as scientific as it is now. And so that really helped me. So all those different factors, really helped me. And then the other thing that I see a lot of younger folks maybe don't have this skill yet, and you need it. You need to be coachable. You need to listen. you need to know when you're wrong. You need to absorb that and get better. And you have to do that to be good. You have to be open to great coaching. Doesn't matter how good the coach is if you're not open to it. So I look for that in people that I want to work with, for sure. Be coachable, be open-minded. Like I said, being passionate and having the work ethic and so forth. That's just kind of that's table stakes if you're going to be successful.
Yeah. As you're talking there, John, I was smiling all the way through it. Greg, you and I have talked about this forever. When I think about college football, what it should be, what it was, and hopefully what it will be again, not that it's not at least partly there, are the kinds of things you talked about, John. We're so focused on money these days. It has this overwhelming way of sweeping all these other things into a secondary or a tertiary position. And what you're talking about is really, really what intercollegiate athletics was supposed to be about. And these coaches are professors.
Right.
They're professing football. There really wasn't supposed to be a difference between someone who's teaching one subject matter with someone who's teaching another. And this dedication to the craft that you described. I mean, it's not a job. Football's not even a game. It's a way of thinking about living and how you
Right.
approach, and then you can take what you learn from that experience and apply it to everything. The teamwork you talked about, the dedication, learning from your mistakes, being able to admit when you make a mistake, because you have to be able to learn to do it better the next time or to do it differently. And it's just Greg, I'm going on, but your thoughts, but it's just so refreshing to hear John talk.
Oh yes, it is, and and just like you said, it's everything is so interconnected, and when you go out into the professional world and meet people, see people, most of your better ones have athletic backgrounds, and I know people say, yeah, how do you know that? Well, it's just the people you talk to and the people you meet. You see that, and there's so much to be learned, and all my years of coaching, I preached that it's not necessarily about winning games, losing games. It's about learning things. It's about growing up. It's about how to deal with tough times and controversy and those type of things. So yeah, it all plays together. John, do you make it up to Morgantown very often?
It's been a couple years. I try to get to a game, every year or two. I was supposed to go to that. I'm going to try to do it this year, the Joe's Kids gathering they have, but I ended up having to go out of town. So I want to try to do that because it seems like a lot of the guys are back for that.
Yeah,
I've been back to every one of our reunions. We got a couple more years for that.
we do the Joe's Kids thing. So
I'd like to come up for that this year. That was that seems like a nice event.
Yeah, a lot of fun, a lot of players there, and we love going up to that. We go up and broadcast from up there and do a lot of interviews and have a really good time. You was talking about it being about money. Frank mentioned with the NIL and transfer portal and all that, and we like to get former players' perspective on where they think all this is headed and what needs to happen in the world of college football and college sports period. But you being a finance guy would probably have a better handle on it than most folks would. What's your thoughts about this NIL transfer portal and what needs to be done to keep this from continuing to spiral out of control?
Well, I'll tell you a story. About 10 or 11 years ago, so right before NIL took off, I was talking to Coach Nealon, and I said, "Hey, Coach, during your time as a coach, what was the biggest change you saw in football?" And he said, "Money." And he said, "When my first job, I was head coach at Canton South High School. I got paid $400 to be the head coach." And he said, And here's what the head coach meant. I lined the field. I cleaned up the locker room afterwards. I ran the weight program and did all the coaching, and I had one assistant. He said, the reason I tell you that is that I never got into football ever thinking I'd ever make any money. Think about that.
Yeah.
Now everybody's into football because it's money. And so, that's not all bad, but it certainly changes your perspective. And, before Indiana, I would have said, I don't know. I don't know. The genie's out of the bottle. I don't know if you can put it back in. If you start the season with 40 people who didn't know each other, along with your freshman class, 2 or 3 weeks before the season, I don't know how you do that. But then Indiana happened and they did it, right? They had 40 people plus a freshman class, so whatever that is, 60 people, who literally didn't know each other, 2 or 3 weeks before their first game. How do you do that? They did it. So this whole NIL thing, I struggle with it because I don't it's hard for me to comprehend how you go back to the way football was before, or any sport, because all the things I talked about, you're playing teammates and you're there for the college experience. We have people now actively are at 3 or 4 different schools in their recruit. I mean, literally all the things that we would have gotten in trouble for when I was in college, you get paid for now.
Yeah.
It's nobody could buy me a lunch or a beer or give me I mean, now you get paid for all that.
Yeah.
And I don't I don't begrudge the players now. It's the way it is. But now it's getting into high school. In Ohio, there's a pending legislation to ban NIL in high school sports. And I heard someone argue, well, that will put us at a big disadvantage against other states. It's high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a good fortune over the years. My dad was a season ticket holder at Mount Union. He went there. And so we'd go to a game every year. And, if you're familiar with Mount Union, the most dominant football team in the history of football. I think when there was a stretch where they won 102 regular season games in a row. And you go there, and there's no scholarships or, any of that, right? They may have NIL now, I don't know. But they had 180 people on the team. Think about that. Why were they on the team? There's 100 kids that are never going to play. They're there because they want to be part of something special.
Yeah.
Right? That's why they play. And I'm afraid some of that will get lost in, with this whole NIL thing. Should guys be able to earn some money? And sure. But I don't know how to govern it. And I think it's too late. And I hear, coaches and athletic directors talk about it like it's some abstract thing that's over here. No, you guys all wanted it. They all wanted it, right? I heard one big-time college coach say, hey, look, I mean, the more this goes along, the teams with the most money are going to have a bigger advantage. Really? Come on. So it's I don't have a solution for it. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. I don't think it's fair that a player takes money and then can change teams. I think that's, if you're going to take money, then you at least have to have some loyalty. So that, I think that's something they need to think about. But other than that, I don't know how to control it now.
I think one silver lining I took it as, I was listening to a talk show the other day. They were talking about the NIL and the transfer portal and the basketball season going on right now. And the SEC is in the top 25. I think they had maybe 2 teams in the top 25. And I said that it's kind of created a little bit of parity in basketball because you don't have near as many players, obviously. And I don't know how long the SEC and the Big Ten will sit back and let that happen. That they're not running the show, that they're not in the mix. And I think they're probably thinking now maybe we need to alter this a little bit. But yeah, the most money is going to win, obviously. And you look at what Texas Tech has done, and some of these other places, and it makes you worry about teams like West Virginia and Marshall and some of these the lower levels. They're not going to ever compete big time because they can't keep players, obviously. So yeah, something definitely has to be done. What's your feelings about kind of jump ship here just a little bit with Rich Rodriguez back in charge, right? How do you think that's going to go?
Well, I think Rich is a good coach. I think he's an old school coach.
Yeah.
I think, there's a couple things. I think he's the things I associated with West Virginia football, he represents, right? So I think his teams are going to be tough. They're going to hit hard. I think they're not going to make as many mistakes, good fundamentals. And they're going to do a lot of creative things on offense, right? And they're going to have a tough defense. So I like his style. And, obviously he was a senior when I was a freshman. And then my sophomore year, he was a grad assistant. And so I think he's got the mentality of a, old school coach, which I think still works. As long as you respect players, which he does. But he has super high expectations, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Super high expectations, which we should. So that part of it I like. I think I just read the other day there's 40 new people for the 40. I think 31 seniors left. There's 40 new people, and that part I just it's hard. I can't grasp that, because I always tell people, why were we so good my senior year? Because we had a senior class that was there for 5 years that stuck pretty much together.
Yep.
And I think some of those days are over, so that part I now we were really good players, but we, if you'd have looked at us when we were freshmen, we were a motley crew. So we grew because we grew together and we challenged each other and we worked hard and so forth. And players today, they may not get to experience some of that, which is a little bit too bad.
Yeah, we've talked about that numerous times about when you mentioned reunions. When you go back to a reunion, which one you want to go to? You have 4 different choices you may end up having to go to. But yeah, I think the days of having 5 or 6 starters on the offensive line that are 5th-year seniors are that's probably close to being over. But I mean that's the way the game is, and that's just the way it is. And I think a problem a lot of people are having is just accepting the fact that this is what it is, and we got to do it this way. And I think Rich Rod has it figured out, with the transfer portal and those type of things. And I just think that the money, it's got to get roped in somehow. Maybe contracts. I think, like you said, somebody that gets paid needs to be loyal for a while. And
right.
I've often said this. I've never had a job, and I'm 65. I've never had a job where somebody said, here's $250,000 for the next 2 years work you're going to do. It was always, you do this work and then we'll pay you this much money,
right.
And which it seems odd to me that they give them all this money up front. And I think that's where financial people comes into play, to help these kids figure out what to do with this money. Because, if I'm 19, 20 years old and somebody hands me, $1 million, that's probably not going to be a good thing for anybody,
Well, unfortunately, it attracts some of the wrong people too, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think about Coach Rodriguez too is that He's a very good recruiter. And that's really important. It's even more important now because now you don't recruit for 5 or 6 months. You're recruiting, year round. You're recruiting kids out of the portal, and it's become more important. So you have to have a great organization to keep track of that, and you have to be really good at it. So I don't think you can. There's some coaches who are just great X's and O coaches and average recruiters. Now that's hard now. There's so much more recruiting that goes on. And I'll tell you one other thing that Rich is going to do. I don't think he could do it last year because they were kind of in the middle of stuff. Maybe he did, and I didn't know this. I don't know if you guys knew this. And this is, I think, huge because football is all about momentum and mental and rhythm and so forth. Do you know Neil Brown practiced in the morning?
Practice in the mornings.
So the whole time he was there, West Virginia practiced in the morning and went to class in the afternoon. I can't do that. Really? So that's so different because it doesn't line up with games. It doesn't line up with kind of the natural rhythm of playing football and so forth. And I heard Rich say, "Oh, we're getting back to practice in the afternoon. You go to class and you're there afternoon." Because basically, from noon to sometimes 8 o'clock, you were in the facilities building. You were in there for a study table. You were in there watching films. So, mentally, you're really focused in a much longer part of the day. If you're practicing in the morning, you're getting up and you're going to practice, right? And then you go to school, and then you come back, and I was really surprised. That's a different philosophy that I
that is a little unusual.
do it that way.
Yeah, it's a little unusual. You'd think you'd want to be acclimated to the time that you're going to play the game, I guess.
Yeah,
it's a little bit strange. Put you on the spot here. Some of the best players you played with and against.
So Major Harris was awesome. Reggie Rembert. I think about the guys that were just gifted, right? I mean, Reggie Rembert was gifted. I always tell a story. We had a great defensive backfield, right? When I was there, and we were in scrimmaging one day, and Reggie went down and beat Bo Orlando and Darryl and scored an 80-yard touchdown. Came back in the huddle. I looked down, and his shoes were untied. And I said, "Reggie, your shoes are untied." He goes, "Oh, I don't tie my shoes until it counts." He's 6'6", ran a 4.3 40. Holy cow! I think Chris Parker was I had to block him every day, so everybody I played against was easy.
Yeah,
Mike Fox. When you block those guys every day, I got a game. This little day off, I guess. But Ronaldo Turnbull was again one of the more gifted athletes I've ever seen. Could do everything. We had a lot of fantastic guys. I mean, and then we had a disproportionate number of guys who were good players, but just worked hard and didn't make mistakes and knew the playbook and that kind of stuff too. And that's a big difference because you usually don't get to have 22 gifted people. We had the best punter in America, Lance Carrion. I don't think he kicked enough to be eligible to for that distinction. He had the best average in college football, and Lance weighed maybe 130 pounds. So great kicker, Charlie Bauman. Right, we just had some great players. Our whole defensive backfield was good. So it's too many to mention.
You look back at
my earlier, we had some great players from the time I was there. It's just some gifted people. Matt Smith was a linebacker. He was gifted. Brian Joswiak was a great player. Just coming up, we had some great players.
Look at that '88 team and that roster, man, what a who's list of football players is on that roster. Man, alive. Frank, you want to jump in before we run out of time? I know we're getting close to time, and let you jump in there one more time if you want to, and wrap us up.
Sure. Well, I get to be a fan listening to you guys, and as you were talking, I was thinking about what Rich Rod said in his press conference this week. His first press conference of the spring, and there's that old saying, "You can't go back," but that doesn't mean there are things associated with the past that you can't bring forward. And one of the things he talked about was how they really couldn't recruit much out of high school last year because he came in so late and he knew that he was going to be losing a number of the players that Coach Brown had recruited. And so they were forced to go with the portal. The other thing he talked about was last year there was a spring portal, so they could go back into the portal after spring practice. And that's one of the reasons that he moved up the spring game to the first Friday of April. But he also talked about the fact, John, that he's looking to have a stable of between, I've got it down here, 22 and 25 seniors each year. And he talked about the fact that they went very hard at high school this year to get a larger number than they have in the past signed, which he got. But the other thing he didn't say is that if you look at the national rankings, West Virginia had maybe its best recruiting season at the high school level in the last 20 years. They were either number 20 or 21. So it wasn't just let's go after some of these kids, but the quality is good. And he talked about the importance of we know how important it is to keep the guys that we get through the portal. And so there's an emphasis on getting guys that have 2 and 3 years of eligibility. And that's why, he was saying we do that because we want to retain these players. So it gets back to what you were talking about. They're not just, getting to know each other at the beginning of fall practice. And so you can see, he knows how to do things. And
he's a great recruiter.
Yeah, he is.
And like I said, people, who doesn't want to be a part of something that's special, right? So you got to create that special environment. You got to win, and people will want to stay if that happens. I hope that's still what's in people's minds. And I think it's partly human nature that it's okay to set really high expectations. I think people you want to hear that. If you're going to come here, you're going to have to work hard. You're going to stay out of trouble. You're going to have to get good grades. You're going to learn things, and we're going to push you every day. I think good players want to hear that.
Yeah, and what you just articulated is part of this elusive concept of culture. That's part of the culture, expectations, goals, etc. And I was thinking the other day of our good friend Dale Wolfley and how he would preach that there is something about Mountaineer football. There is a way of approaching the game that's clearly Mountaineer football. It's grit, it's determination, it's overachieving. And you can see that with Rich Rod. He talked about the fact that it's not as though we didn't have a culture last year, but it's building blocks. And it was interesting. He made a comment that I thought was really interesting. He said one time when he was coaching at Glenville, Bobby Bowden, he was talking with Bobby Bowden, who was still at, he talked to him all the time, even though he was no longer at West Virginia. He said I'm looking at my notes here. He said, there are 4 phases to your career, coach. He said, you'll start by losing big, then you'll go to losing close, then you'll go to winning close, then you go to winning big. And, when you think about those two guys' careers, that's exactly what Bobby Bowden did when he took over Florida State. Wow, they were not much of a team, and they ended up winning big. And Rich Rod did the same thing. They only won 3 games in 2001. They won 9 games the next year. So, it's that progression That's part of the culture. It's just building blocks.
Well, there's a great business quote in the business world, and it's culture eats strategy for breakfast.
I love that. And I bet you practice that, even though strategic initiatives is in your, obviously it's not only in your DNA, it's in your job description.
Number one job of any leader is to build a great team. If you do that, you're 80, 90% there, right? So he's got to build a great team of coaches and support staff and players and so forth, which he's doing. And, then you'll have the right culture. And then a lot of this stuff the problems you have to deal with, they're not there. So you can focus on, what's important.
Absolutely. Hey, Greg, this has just been, we had high expectations for you, John, and you exceeded them, right, Greg?
That's right. Never fails, these guys. I was thinking there when we were talking about his career after WVU, I was reading some things, doing a little research, and when I was reading words that I didn't even know what they meant, I knew he'd accomplished something. I wasn't sure what it was, but I knew it was something good. That's what I read into. So, but anyway, John, we do appreciate you taking the time for us, man. It's been a lot of fun hearing some of the memories and
enjoyed it.
Seeing what you've accomplished since your time at WVU is impressive, as we find a lot of, and we look forward to having you on again sometime.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Enjoyed it. And go Mountaineers.
Go Mountaineers. That's right. Thank you, John. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks.
And you're welcome. You'll be in the background. You're welcome to hang around if you'd like. We'll chit-chat a little bit here before we sign off. But you can also get up and run like you did before. So whatever you do. Your call.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, John. And Frank, again, I know we talk about this all the time, but isn't it amazing? I mean, you watch these guys, or I did growing up, and watched them play, and what great football players. And you always, no matter if you're a coach, player, or what, you have that dumb jock mentality thing in your mind. Well, he was a football player, But my gosh, these guys have done amazing things, and he's no different. And it just continues to blow me away every week after week after week. We have people on who've just accomplished so many great things after they left WVU. It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that struck me about John, and with so many other guys we've talked with, it's not just that they've accomplished important things, but their philosophy about work and the engagement with others, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, these are the kinds of people you want to have in your organization. These are the kinds of people you want to have as family members, as neighbors, as people that you can rely on. And it's to me, it's just refreshing, because we spend a lot of time dealing with issues that are very different, with people who operate very differently, and it's too easy to say that's normal. And I would argue that's abnormal. And that people like John are not only normal, they're exemplars. And it's just fantastic to get into their heads and have them articulate their values. And they have such great integrity, and it's great. But anyway, it'll be interesting now, because we're back into the football routine with the practice starting on Saturday. And there's going to be a spring thing on the 18th of April, and that'll be fun. When I heard that it was going to be canceled, that word is, there's so many guys, alums, who look forward to coming back to that, just to renew each other, their relationships.
Yeah, I think it sounds like what they're trying to do is, create something that attracts people to come back. Make it a fun event, make it a fan-friendly event, and get people back. I think that's the goal. I think he's walking a fine line there of not having the game and having the game, getting people there, not getting them there. But I think that's what he's trying to create, is something that some type of an event that former players would enjoy coming back to, if nothing else for the reunion part of it. So yeah, I was like you when I read it, canceled it. Then read on more about what they were planning on doing. It sounded a little bit better, but Frank, if you look around the country, this is not something you know uh, unique to West Virginia. Lots of schools are canceling that spring game. I know Nebraska's not having one. USC's not having one. There's several of them. Ohio State's not having one. There's lots of them that have canceled out those spring games because they fear player poaching, and that's a real reality. And I think it's something probably they don't necessarily want to do, but they feel like probably it's in the best interest of the team that they go ahead and do it. You don't want to, you don't want to lose your players. Uh, come out and perform well in the spring game, and next week they're somewhere else. You don't want that. So a lot of them are canceling, but it sounds like this is going to be an event that is, fan friendly again, and hopefully will attract some former players.
Yeah, yeah. Whatever it'll be, it'll be fine.
Oh yeah,
And in fact, the article that you shared with me, one of the points that stuck out to me was the fact that things aren't firm yet, and they
right,
had a sentence or two saying it'll be worked out. It's not just going to be a football thing. Our good
right,
friend Kevin Johnston with the alumni group will be involved in that. The Ren Baker
yeah,
will be involved because we're talking about having it so that families can participate, fans can come back, alums, which is a really under Kevin's leadership, Johnston. Um,
yeah,
it's really important to be able to
yeah,
have opportunities to bring those alums back, and so
yeah,
that's really important.
yeah,
Before we sign off, I need to talk a bit about. You may have. I learned late there was supposed to be a baseball game today between the Mountaineers and the Thundering Herd. That was scheduled fairly late because Marshall played Virginia Tech yesterday, as I recall. The weather was good down there, but the game was canceled. So for those that were looking for the score between, and it was supposed, I saw it on ESPN Plus. It was pre-advertised. That
yeah,
game was canceled, and so the Mountaineers will play Columbia University, the Ivy League Columbia, at home this weekend. 3 game set, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then Maryland next week, I think Tuesday at home from the Big Ten. Sounds crazy to refer to Maryland as the Big Ten. And then they start the Big 12 season next weekend in Baylor. Baylor is a 500 club so far this year, but
yeah,
you can't tell much from that. But
right,
we lost a couple of closing games of a 3 game set, both at Liberty and Kennesaw the last 2 weekends. But we keep on moving up in the rankings. I think we're 23rd now. But this baseball team is an exciting team. And I'll tell you what, I looked at this today. If I've got it right here, I hope I can find it real fast. That in batting, we're number 3 in the Big 12. Pitching, we're ranked number 1. Batting in terms of as ranked by batting average, 306. First in pitching, ranked by ERA at 3.17, and number 2 in fielding at .983. So West Virginia is in the top 3 in 3 obviously critical categories. The most important batting, pitching, and fielding. So the sad thing is we lost a frontline pitcher who had performed well after coming back from injury, but this team is certainly a team to watch, as you well know.
yeah. They hit the ball really well. If you're going to have, if you're going to be tops in any categories, those are 3 good categories to be tops in. We've talked about the fact that you've got to have that pitching in order to be good. That's at any level, and we hit the ball extremely well. And then our defense. You and I talked about this last week with all these guys that have played a variety of positions on the infield. That defense is pretty solid as well. So I think this is going to be a fun team to watch. It may be maybe one of the better teams we've had, even though we don't have the big names yet. like a Weather Holt or someone like that. I think that we're a little bit more well-rounded than what we have been in the past few years. We've got, better pitcher, better hitting all around, not maybe individually, but as a whole. I think that makes for a good team and should be a lot of fun to watch. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure why the game was canceled today. The weather was fine here. It was warm and a little cloudy, but it was warm. And I don't know unless it rained somewhere that I didn't know about. But yeah, I'm not sure why they canceled it.
Well, it was canceled relatively late because I looked on ESPN Plus and the game was up there. But anyway,
Yeah.
we don't want to close the night without a shout out to the women's basketball team, the Women Mountaineers. They've got a tough week this week, but they get a triple bye, so they don't play in the Big 12 championship until Friday. In fact, the time is already set, 6:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus. But even though they're number 15 in the country, they finished a game behind TCU. They're obviously second seed in the Big 12 tournament. But the quad they're in, the four teams that are in the quad, the winner of the first couple games gets to play West Virginia, is Arizona State, and I hate to say it because it's one of my alma maters, but Iowa State. Iowa State is a tough team. And what makes Iowa State tougher in the Big 12 championship is that it's always played in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many thousand Cyclone fans will be in the stands if Iowa State wins. I think they only have to play. Yeah, they only have to play one game. They get a single bye. So they're going to have to play in the second game. They'll play the winner of the Arizona State game, and odds are that Iowa State's going to win that game. And so the Women Mountaineers are going to have their hands full on Friday night at 6:30. But I'll tell you what, they're a tough team. I mean, they've been blowing teams out.
Yeah. Yep, they have been, and you hope that it just doesn't work in reverse and gives them too big of a layoff, but rather gives them a chance to heal up and rest up a little bit and be ready to go against Iowa State, because obviously they can beat Iowa State. They know that, and this team could really could make some noise if everything falls right, as far as seed and that sort of thing is concerned. So I think it's important that they win a game, win this game and advance and that just makes a better NCAA seed, and that's going to help them a lot. That seeding often plays a big part in that, and I think it's important to them because they're capable of making a good run in this NCAA tournament if everything falls into place like we hope it does.
You're right, and even though they're ranked number 15, the NCAA net, which is the official metric, one of them at least, they're 18th. And so they're not in the top 16 seeds.
Right.
And so you're right. Winning a game is really important to try to get a 4 seed.
Right.
And, we both know, if odds go the way that they're expected to go, it'll be TCU and West Virginia in the final. And TCU that's one hell of a team. There's no question.
They're good. Yep, very good, very good. So keep our fingers crossed on that. Hey, we want to make sure we shout out Mark Parsons as well for helping us out with our guest list. As always, Mark does a great job for us down there in Tennessee, and he's always got connections and always texting and said, "Okay, this guy's on, this guy's in, this guy's in." He's always lining up those guests for us. So we want to thank Mark Parsons for all the work that he does as well.
Absolutely, and he lined up John, and he also lined up our next week guest. And if you can throw that up, Darren, we've got royalty coming next week from the Braxton family. This is Phil Braxton, wide receiver, early 2000, can talk about playing for Rich Rod and so on. He'll be with us next Wednesday night, and it's always good to reconnect with Mountaineer royalty.
Yep, sure is. It'll be a lot of fun, like all these guys are. It's been been fun every week. So looking forward to that. Well, Frank, if nothing else, great job tonight, Darren. Appreciate your work behind the scenes. We thank John Stroia for all his efforts and being with us, and we truly thank him. That was a ton of fun talking to him, and we look forward to coming to you again next week here on the Mountaineer Locker Room. Then and now, for Frank Fear, Darren, I'm Greg Christ. We will see you next Wednesday night. Good night, everybody.